Hello, everyone. This is Inner Leadership by Akhila, and today we have with us Prachi Jain. I met Prachi during a Vipassana course, and what struck me immediately was her deep presence and clarity in life. She's the co-founder and creative head at Teabox, a premium tree brand that blends together tradition and also with modern aesthetics for, I believe, a global audience. Beyond business, what I have seen so far is that she's a very early riser. She's a very devoted mother who embraces the philosophy of unschooling and someone who's deeply committed to intentional living. Hi, Prachi. How are you doing today?
Hi, Akhila. Hi. I remember those Vipassana days.
All right, so we'll go through your journey. So let's get into it. Could you tell us a little bit about T-Box? What is T-Box? What's your initial vision about T-Box? How did you see it evolving?
Okay. Teabox started back in 2011 as Darjeeling Tea Express with an aim to disrupt the 200-year-old tea industry. It is an
Okay,
industry, it's that old, and it, in a lot of sense, still operates with the same principles.
okay,
It really needed a rejig, and very interestingly, we didn't have a single premium brand from India. Of course, we had the Tatas and the other, but they were catering only to the chai segment. I'm here talking of teas which are like, 25,000 a kilo, 50,000 a kilo, 1 lakh a kilo. All of these teas were just being exported. And interestingly, when my husband started Teabox, they said we will not sell the teas to an Indian. The teas are only reserved for the Goras. So yeah, then he had to prop someone in middle, and we started to get teas. But what changed for us was actually when Mr. Ratan Tata invested in us. That changed the whole game because now the entire industry was like, okay, now this is a big deal. So that's when the entire industry started to look at us from a different perspective. Now the wonder was, why T-Box? Why invest in a company like T-Box? There are a couple of reasons. The teas are hygroscopic in nature. So by the time the teas from India leave to, say, Europe or US, most of its flavor is lost. And the way they are stored in warehouses, it's no more fun to drink
yeah,
and kind of really appreciate the tea. And Darjeeling is actually a place where a lot of wine kind of teas are produced. So you really need to take a lot of care. So when Kaushal started this, I wasn't still married to him. So that was his idea when he initially started. So he actually started to then really ponder and do a lot of science research in terms of, if the teas are hygroscopic, then what all needs to go around in packaging and things like that. We were one of the first to vacuum pack the teas. We were one of the first to actually have cold storage for teas. We were also one of the first to have a dehumidified facility for our teas, which means that teas are really well taken care of and they're shipped directly from the source. So
mm,
today also, when there are a lot of other tea brands who have emulated Tea Box, sitting in Delhi, sitting in Kolkata, sitting in Bombay, they say fresh from the source. Now I don't get it because we are actually in Siliguri. So Darjeeling is
yeah,
just about 2.5 to 3 hours. So by the time the tea is produced, it immediately comes into our facility where it is immediately sent into the dehumidified facility, vacuum packed, and there's a whole lot of process that we do. We also hand sort our teas and all that. All of this is only because the tea really needs that sort of care. Um,
right.
because when you sell a product, and again, India is so looked down upon quality, right? All cheap stuff come out of India. There is no brand, there is no ethics. That's the whole perception built around our nation in terms of brand and all of that.
Right.
But we really wanted to change that. We didn't want to, come across as a brand or yet another brand. So everything had to be on point for us. And of course the product was the beginning, and then of course the look and feel, the design, the marketing, the way we talk, a language, everything had to be decided because someone sitting in US, if is ordering from tbox.com, really need to trust the brand, and all that comes through design and quality and all of that, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, the vision for tbox in very one simple plain sentence is: to produce fresh Indian teas, premium Indian teas, all the way from the source to all across the world.
How has the Indian audience taken about Teabox when compared to a lot of mainstream brands?
Interestingly, you always have the aspirational crowd, right? You
Right.
always have crowd that wants to say, okay, I'm done and dusted with Colgate as toothpaste. Now I need to change. I need to go and try a new toothpaste, for example. This is something similar that happened to Teabox also, because we gave very good quality. Like for example, when we entered India market with our green teas, we said there is 0% bitterness, we are 100% whole leaf, we are no dust. So if you ever open a tea bag, you'll see dust. That's the lowest grade of tea. And when you steep it, it immediately, gives you the flavor, yes, but 30 seconds more if you steep, it will be bitter.
Ah,
That
okay.
is why, Indians are like, okay, green tea is good, healthy, all that, yes, but it's bitter, can't take it. That's
Yes,
just because,
yes,
when you give low grade quality, that's what happens. And then you say rose flavor, lemon flavor, there's no lemon in the lemon, there is all artificial flavoring. So things like that, and that's why at Teabox, honey lemon was one of the major big SKU in India on Amazon by other brands, the legacy owned brands, right? We chose not to have we chose not to have that SKU because it couldn't be made with otherwise. I can't put a lemon zest peel, a real ingredient, into the tea because it will make your tea bitter. So
yep,
I'm saying, why will I do that? You squeeze a fresh lemon and have your green tea. But what I
yes,
can do is, if it's a rose tea, I will give you dried rose petals. If it's a hibiscus cinnamon, I will give you dried hibiscus, clove, and cinnamon into the tea. Which means whatever is going from Teabox as a brand, people do realize and feel the difference. And India actually contributes a larger percentage of our business, honestly. So I'm happy there are takers in India.
from the way you explained, right, the initial thought was maybe it was more of the international audience. But I believe with time, even we Indians are becoming quite brand aware. We read labels and we understand, okay, what is actually going into this product.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think a lot of influencers have done a great job around it. So kudos to them. My daughter reads them. First thing, Mama, this has this cannot take.
All right. So, as the creative head, right, how did you approach the branding and design to cater for both Indian and international audience?
See, my design philosophy is a little different. We say that I'm here to represent what I am giving you as a brand. I'm not keeping their thought process in head. Now, if you see our green tea again, or chai, for example, in our green tea or say Kashmiri kava or pure chamomile tea, for example, there is an illustration of a chamomile flower,
Hmm.
and there are small bugs on it. That is to say that it is natural. It comes right from the purity of it. Because
Yeah.
without them, there is no nature, right? You can't give like a proper, because they are a part and parcel of the nature, right? And that's where your teas and your ingredients and your spices are coming from.
Yeah.
So my thought for process when I'm designing anything or when I give a brief to the team is very simple, that it needs to really put out the product that is there. Like if it's a hibiscus, cinnamon, clove, green tea, then there has to be a hibiscus there. There has to be some parts of clove. And if the main ingredient is hibiscus, just the hibiscus with some bit of these butterflies and bugs crawling around it.
Hmm.
And make it, like if a person sees it from far, they should know that, yes, this is tea box and this is hibiscus. The color, it needs to stand out. It's
Right.
never to keep any persona in mind, honestly. It's always the brand that I keep. It's always the product that I keep. And the offering and how we are different from other brands is what is in the thought process. The other thing, of course, like you see a Darjeeling tea packaging, we have the pluckers right on the facade
Hmm.
because no one else was doing before. All they were doing was two tea leaves and one bud would come out and there would be an estate and the usual boring stuff. We said there are 3.2 million pluckers all across India, from Nilgiri, Assam, Darjeeling, Kangra, all of them together, right? Now, They are the ones who wake up 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning. If it's rainy, sunny, whatever the climate is, it's cold, it's dark outside, they are going there. They are climbing those altitudes to give you that sort of tea, to pluck those sort of teas. And they put in so much of hard work that
Yeah.
there is no recognition. And we thought, why not? A great way to celebrate them would to give them recognition on our packaging. So we got someone. He's a very very dear friend of mine who illustrated them for us. So there's a different Assamese, there's a different Darjeeling, there's a different Sikkim, there's a different Nilgiri. So all of these different pluckers denote different regions. Now, again, see if you see the design, it caters to an international audience, it caters to an Indian audience. My storytelling is what I'm more focused on.
Right. No, I think that's where it makes you very authentic and not industrialized.
Absolutely. I totally agree to that. Yeah.
You were talking about your daughter, right? I believe she also follows with a lot of progress and steps that you take in making the brand what it is. Uh,
Absolutely.
and that too at such a young age. So could you tell us your philosophy of motherhood? How is your philosophy of unschooling and what led you to choose that?
Okay. So, philosophy of motherhood to begin with, I mean, that's your first question. So, over the years, I've realized that motherhood is a journey of discovering yourself. And because you bring in a lot of generational trauma, or you bring in a lot of generational conditioning, a lot of stuff, right? You've only seen your mother or you've seen your grandparents behave a certain way, and you know only of that because parenting is not taught in colleges. It's not something, a skill that is given to us, or we go to schools, we hear lectures. No, that's not the thing, right? We're just pushed into it. Become
Yeah.
a mother, figure it out. you know, it's like that.
Yes.
So for me, it was actually, and thankfully, she was so patient with me that she gave me that space to first say, "Okay, Mama, come into your being," and then you know, it's never a mother and it's not that mother thing come instinctively, yes, but apart from that, I think it's all about being my authentic self to really break out all those layers and stuff. So there's no philosophy to motherhood, honestly. And like they show in movies and all, the minute the kid is born, you're all smiling and you're all nurturing and all that. No, nothing like that happens. You are just, you have gone through that pain and you're now exhausted. Now they've taken your kid away and you are like, Bhaiya, I just want to sleep. So there is no, that thing doesn't come at all. But so it's honestly like, we'll delve into that deeper also, when we talk about our 3 a.m. journey, because for me, the 3 a.m. started all because of her. It started because I wanted to discover myself. So my motherhood journey has been a very beautiful one where, Prachi, I think 6 years back is very different from what you see today, Akhila. There's a huge contrast. People who know me, they really vouch for it. And I think Dia also keeps saying, Mama, your temper was here, now it's here, it's just here. So she sees that difference when I'm working on myself, right?
Right.
Dia did go to school. She went till about third grade. It's been a year of our unschooling. And the unschooling decision, interestingly, was not ours, Akhila. It was hers. So what we did was we just supported her. My brother was already unschooling his kid, so we knew the pros of it were way more higher than the cons. I think there is hardly a con, because if you have a community, then the social aspect is also taken care of.
Right.
But unschooling, why we thought would really work for her is because if you see the world today, what was in today is out by tomorrow.
Hmm.
Look at how AI is rapidly changing everyone. And when me and my husband, we may be discussing this, we realize that even at Teabox, when resumes come, we never see which college they are from, what is their degree and percentages. What we see is their body of internship and what portfolio or what work they have done. This is what defines them. Because in my team, I have designers of, I think, about 7 people, and most of them are engineers. How do I judge them?
Yeah.
You know? And today, why waste those beautiful, precious years in trying to put yourself in a box and say, I want to be 100 in geography, I want to be 100 in history? No, I don't want. We went to school because there was no internet. We went for information. But thankfully, today the information is available across internet.
Right.
Today, sitting, I can know everything about the Mughal era. I don't have to go to school for that.
Yeah.
But there is an opportunity, if at all, say she chooses a stream like want to be a pilot or want to be a doctor, she can do it through a portal called NIOS. Then, of course, she has to go through her, studies and everything and do her exams and all that through that portal. But there are now, I mean, Google has opened up. I'm hearing a lot of other companies opening up where they say that there is no requirement for you to pass school and pass colleges. If your body of work is that good, then I'm willing to take you.
Yeah.
So, unschooling for us, I mean, in fact, that's why we're not even homeschooling. We don't want her to, have those fixed routines of ki mathematics class now, history class now. What you were doing in school, you're doing at home, didn't make sense to us. But you're learning history. Say we went to Coorg recently. Uh, so there you're learning about Kodagu tribe. You're learning about the terrains. You're learning about the birds who are. So interestingly, there was someone there who introduced us to this beautiful app called Merlin Bird, I think,
Okay.
where you can just, so if there's a bird that's singing, chirping, you just put your phone and that app will tell you which bird it is.
Ah, okay.
You're learning like that, and this learning will always be with you.
Yes.
Today, if you ask me, I only know Independence Day year. Apart from that, the mutiny and whatever rest happened, I don't know the years, but I do know those specific events that happened.
Right.
But it is like you're learning botany. You know this is coconut tree and this is neem and this is hibiscus. Now, what do I do with that information, right? I'm not able to put it out into real life application. Now, someone needs to tell me that neem is supposed to be used for skin issues. You can boil neem leaves, take bath with it. Then there is a real life application.
Right.
Me just knowing it is neem is not helping me.
Yeah.
So loading information was not something that me and my husband thought was, and when she chose this for herself, we were very happy. I initially, way before she was even born, I used to think of how I would educate her, and this was how I always envisioned. But with Teabox, I couldn't have two babies, handle. So she went to a Montessori-based school, and it was good till then. And from fourth, they started to structure a little bit.
Hmm.
That repelled her. She said, Mama, what if I'm slow in a subject, and what if I am good in one subject? I will have this. I will have to be on the same line as others.
Yep.
I don't want that. I was like, okay, fair enough. So we did everything. We spoke to the principal. We went to the school. We said, get her to school again. We tried everything. But when her decision was so strong and she was letting go of her friends, whom she's very close to, we realized it came from a very different space and we respected that, and hence the journey. It's been a year now.
What difference do you see from someone like her versus someone who goes to school?
You're going to put me into trouble. I have seen a difference, and I don't know if it's how we are at home.
Hmm.
Because here at home, she is supposed to do all the chores,
Okay.
cleaning the bathroom whenever required. It's not, she doesn't have a set chart, but if it's a requirement, she has to do it. Like today, she helped me mopping. She ran the errands around at home for me so that I could be on time here and things like that. So the difference that I've seen is she just rolls up her sleeve and she gets on with it. There is no definition of this is how it needs to be. You know, there are different ways you can see it. Like in school, um, they'll tell you that this is how it should be. Sit
Hmm.
here. You can't go to the washroom. Only after the class bell rings. So subconsciously, Akhila, you are creating a lot of boundaries within yourself.
Right.
You will never be in a position to say, okay, it's a new problem. How do I see it differently? How do I tackle it differently?
Hmm.
So that is one aspect that I have seen um, happen with Dia, and when I observe other kids around, that it is something really different. And the ability to also pursue things, right? Like today, for the last 2 days, we've been working only on her birthday. So
Hmm.
we are making newspaper paper bags. Then we got those small cloths from the decor curtain shop. Then we are cutting scraps out of that. We are making those small pouches. Now today also she's into that. So for us, in this there is mathematics. How do I measure? How do I fold? How do I think? Mama, this way is too tedious. Can I think of a different way? So very interestingly, there is this space in Jainagar called Arohan in Bangalore. And this space is run by someone who has studied at Harvard, done his PhD at Harvard, um, and taught at Harvard,
Hmm.
then chose to bring three of his kids to India and say, I'm going to homeschool them.
Ah.
Because he is also seeing the same thing. He's saying today, when I want to say that redefine this pen, they are unable to. They will still give a body, they'll still give a cap, there'll still be a nib. Someone's not able to think totally out of the box and say, why not like this?
Yeah.
That is something when he said, I was like, yeah, totally, And why you do engineering and then you realize, oh no, graphic designing is my passion. Then you start at the age of 22. No point, right?
Yeah.
Like today, if Dia wants to, she's learning baking. She's very good at it. She gets a couple of orders from friends and family. That gets her to calculate, that gets her to measure, that gets her to do a lot of other things. She's learning science. What's gluten? How does it react? So I'm not worried about it being only a subject. I want all the subjects to kind of come into real life practices.
Right.
So that's the whole journey. It's beautiful.
I I have a question. Like when you do that, right? You have to be a very hands-on mom, if I'm being honest, yes?
Yes, you have to be if your kids are a little younger. But thankfully, mine's quite independent.
Hmm.
I don't have to be so much.
Okay. Because
Uh,
the way I was thinking, right? I mean, when you have to be involved and you need to be able to teach her or maybe guide her on these things, and at the same time handling a business, right? How do you do that?
I do have a routine, and that really helps me. So there are hours, and of course, I have a very beautiful team, which helps me and allows me to do it. So most of my work is honestly thinking, directing, strategizing, and then the team executes it. So I don't really have to, be on the ground a lot of times. And thankfully, I also have a partner who really supports me. So there are times when if I'm not available because of her, then he takes it up. So there
Hmm.
is that sort of working that we have managed to do. But mostly I'm able to do it also because Dia is now 10 years. So
Right.
she's quite independent. And our journey started only a year back. So she was 9 when we started this.
Hmm.
So it wasn't difficult. So she makes her own list. She decides. She learned macrame looking online and through her mommy. Then she learned a couple of things on her own. And then, of course, this community that I'm talking about in Jainagar called Arohan. Beautiful space. They're so generous and so giving that Dia can spend hours and hours there. And she's well taken care of. So, yeah, they keep doing different stuff. So that kind of all helps it.
Understood. I mean, the way I think, it's a privilege that you have a community and
Yeah.
people around you, people who can also support you. Uh, I'm not very sure if this has to be achieved at a mass level, if it can be, or how can people go about it. But maybe down the lane, you can start something for it.
See, the whole idea around unschooling, homeschooling, there is road schooling, there are a lot of schooling, different kinds, and everyone has a different journey. But if this has to go mass, I think the only way I'm envisioning this to be is some sort of, bring back the Gurukul structure that we had earlier. That is when, and have a mix of the modern thing. So a culmination of both is something I'm thinking about it. I might start something.
So, what advice would you give to individuals such as yourself who want to start new ventures, especially those who are balancing multiple roles in their life?
Firstly, I think they need to ask themselves why they're doing it.
Okay.
Secondly, you need to decide if it's going to be a business or a brand.
Hmm.
There's a difference. If you want your product to really be a brand someday and know for its story, then you clearly need to have a USP. Now, today, say for example, I want to start a soap business.
Hmm.
What am I offering that there is already not in the market? And if I'm going to offer the same thing, will it really reach that kind of level that I think in my head it should? These
Hmm.
are all questions that we need to ask, right? We can be very happy about something that has worked with our friends and family, but when it needs to go reach a larger scale, the questions change, the dynamics change, everything change. This was
Correct.
something I was asked recently, that what Prachi, what's the difference between business and a brand when you say this? A business is only with an aim to, have money. You can do B2C, you can do B2B, you can do anything under the roof there. But when you have a brand, you cannot venture into different stuff. You need to have a storytelling. Like, for example, Forest Essentials, right? It's a brand known for Ayurveda, a modern twist to the Ayurveda, right? They stand through it.
Yeah.
At Teabox, we can never have something which is loaded with sugar, for example, because ours is fresh from source, purity, nature, real, we are health focused, all that. Now, today, I just cannot, just because, I get good numbers in chai premixes, I cannot one day wake up and say, oh, good numbers there, let me just launch a range.
Hmm.
You can do this when you're in a business.
Yeah.
Then you wouldn't care because then it's all about money, right? It's all about numbers, it's all about that economics. But the minute you're a brand, you have to be very conscious what you're saying, what you're doing, what are the kind of products you're putting out. So there's a whole different game altogether. So, yes, of course, I will ask that first questions. Is it my priority at this point in time?
Hmm.
Should I really venture into this if I have all of these roles and I want to start another business, which is going to require enormous amount of energy of mine? Will I be able to do justice?
Hmm.
If it's my priority, then yes, go for it. Then, you know, what is the kind of, why am I even doing the business? Because
Hmm.
as an entrepreneur, you really need to know that. Is it for money? Is it for legacy? It is for your passion. It is something that you really want to give it to world because it's your gift. Because this is the fuel that will take you
Yeah.
throughout. So then, of course, the business and the brand question, and then you kind of sit with your family, friends, do a pilot, and then yeah, that's the whole process.
Awesome. Uh, have there been any books that have helped you or influenced you quite significantly?
Many books, many, and from very different ways.
Hmm.
Like one of the books, Benjamin Franklin's autobiography, was something I was wowed by. I was like, okay, now here's a guy who also wakes up early, who was able to do so much in his lifetime, and someone who lived by a certain philosophy.
Hmm.
Then there was, then of course there's Bhagavad Gita. Then there is an autobiography of one of my Jain acharyas. He
Hmm.
talked of something. He actually time blocks his day. Um, so he says that 9 to 11 this, 11 to 12 this, 12 to 3
Hmm.
this. So when you time block your day, it is amazing at how much you can do in the day. It's beautiful. You're not going with the flow. Yes, you have space for the flow, but there is a certain direction towards the day. That is something that I really picked up from his autobiography. There are many. The I can't just, then there was Everyday Ayurveda, a book that I highly recommend to everyone.
Okay.
who again emphasized on how small things when you introduce in your daily life, it just changes your being, because health ultimately is the only tool that can enable you to do everything that you want to do in life, right?
Yes.
Then, of course, there's this book that I love, swear, adore, do everything, and I keep talking about this. It's Heal Your Life by Louise Hay. This was one book that I haven't read it completely yet. Um, but the only section that I always go back to is the last few pages, because it has all the physical ailments and it has the emotional reason for it. So that's one section of the book that I keep going back to again and again, because it really helps me be reflective in terms of, okay, if I have a pain suddenly in the knee and I'm like, okay, why? So when I see the knee, it probably says ego. And then I'm like, okay, when was the last time I behaved a certain way? So it's very reflective for me. It really helps me when morning, when I get up and I do that at work, being a mother, playing these different roles. All of these books have come at a time whenever I've needed them. And
Right.
and you see this is just a small thing. I've like a, we have like a huge, a range of books that I just pick up and I get an answer to whatever that I'm going through. So I cannot like really pin down on books, but I love books. Any knowledge is great
Yeah.
till you turn it into wisdom.
I I think over a period of time you will start connecting a lot of dots with different books. So it becomes an amalgamation of it rather than one particular book.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I really like the conversation with us because so till now, I always used to understand that, say, be it schooling, be it the way you live your life, right? Uh, from my perspective, it was always like, okay, so there are some parts of life that has to be structured, have to be in a certain way, and maybe I'll do an extra co-curricular activity or so. But talking with you, it has changed my perspective on a lot of things and some research that I also need to do. So yeah. Um, and one thing which I really liked when I spoke with you first was your morning routine and that you wake up at 3 a.m. Could you tell us why the 3 a.m. Brahma Muhurtam started and how it has influenced life? And as especially the journey, because a lot of us sleep at 3 a.m. So, so yes, the
Yeah.
stage is all yours. Go on.
The journey, like I was mentioning earlier when you asked me about motherhood, it started off from an evening where I very badly shouted at Dia. I
Hmm.
was very angry, very frustrated. I cried because we had just shifted to Bangalore with no help around. The company, Dia was very small. She was probably 3 years old then. It was
Hmm.
too much for me to handle.
Hmm.
And Kaushal also was very heavily busy at Teabox, so he wasn't available either. And it was like, it felt like someone's just dumped a mountain on my head and I now have to take care of it. So it was literally something like that. One evening when I just shouted at her, so irritated and so angry that I just started to cry, and I cried and I cried and I cried. And I said, okay, this is not how I want Dia to know her mom.
Right.
She can't know me as someone who is always angry. She can't fear me. I mean, that was not, I'd never visualized that for myself or for the children I would have had. I was like, no, something has to fundamentally change. I was always an early riser. Early, you mean six, is something I've always, I've woken up during that time. So, but the entire family would wake up around six, right?
Hmm.
I didn't have, or even if they wake up at seven, I just had 6 to 7, which would probably go, tidying up the house or doing something in the kitchen or my daily ablutions. And then it's the whole same routine, the rut, right? I kind of didn't feel that I had space for myself and time for myself, either to do physical exercise or meditate or read a book or journal, nothing.
Hmm.
So I said, okay, now, interestingly, what happened for me was that when Dia was born, it was like all of my childhood muck had just come up. It said, okay, dude, I'm all here. Now fix me. Because if you're not going to fix this, you're not going to become a great mother. So
Yep.
I'm like, okay. Before marriage, I remember a session that I did with my healer back in Singapore, and I kind of remembered the technique of how she went about it. So I said, okay, I know the technique. Now I'm going to start. So I'm going to watch out for all the triggers that's coming my way, and I'm going to resolve them. So I started to wake up at 4. No, sorry, 5. It's the 5 was what it started off with. I said, okay, an hour is good enough. So at 5, I would wake up and I would only focus on healing and read this book, Heal Your Life, and kind of really figure out, okay, I have spondylitis. Now, if this is the issue, go deeper. When did it come first? Was it my dad or was it someone else? Blah, blah, blah. And then write down, release it, forgive them if they have to. And there's a process, right?
Hmm.
So when I started to do this, of course, I started to see a lot of difference and changes within me. I felt lighter and lighter. So now I'm like, okay, now let's focus on physical health. I had thyroid back then. I was like, okay, now if thyroid you start to bloat up, and not like something I've reduced weight even now, but that's a different story. I wanted to do asanas and pranayam and do meditation and all that. So that 5 became 4. And slowly I said, okay, 2 hours is also not enough. I'm not getting time to read and journal and learn something new. So I then started to wake up at 3. Now, 3 was something I stuck to because it really helps me 3 hours before the household is up. I kind of really sharpen my pencil. Like, I sharpen myself by either reading or meditating and doing whatever I think I can't do through the day for myself. I do it in these 3 hours. And I've seen enormous, and since my journey started like this, I didn't know the science. I didn't know Brahma Muhurta. I didn't know all of this. That is when this book called Everyday Ayurveda that I was telling to you about came into my life, and it then showed me a very different picture. And one day, interestingly, I was up at that time, and there was a hibiscus flower at my home. And I said, I'm going to do time lapse today. I want to see it bloom. So I put my tripod and set my phone and, did it. Of course, that beautiful thing came, the time lapse came and that flower bloomed. But what interestingly I realized was at the background, it turned from dark to morning. Like 3, it's dark, right?
Yeah.
And slowly as the sun rose, it came into its full existence. So what I loved about, and I first time when I saw, I didn't realize, Second time I saw the colors change of the sky. I was like, oh my God, there's more to this. There is science behind this actually.
Right.
Then, of course, I started to devour all the books on Ayurveda, on Bhagavad Gita, and all the ancient texts that can talk about this and how everything is interconnected also. I can go on and on about this topic, but what I realized was that we are nature, we are a part of nature, and somehow, or over the years, we kind of got ourselves so detached that we didn't realize that what we are doing with our bodies, Our bodies also, like that hibiscus flower, bloom a certain time and has to shut down a certain time. It
Right.
is science. The circadian rhythm that the science is discovering today, our rishis discovered long back,
Yeah.
thousands of years back. They woke up that time, they slept a certain time. And why they call it a Brahma Muhurta is because at that time, they call it the divine's hour.
Right.
Something in the realm it becomes lighter. So when you meditate, you're able to connect to the higher being very quickly. So,
Yes.
and you will feel that, if you have experienced it. But when you do it, say with your heavy stomach and, okay, I have time at 11 o'clock, I'll do 5 minutes meditation. No, doesn't work.
Yep.
There's a certain, of course, you can do, not denying, like do it. At least that 5 minutes will bring some sort of peace. But people who really walk down the spiritual path, probably it's not for them. There are certain kalas that they say. Those kalas are the only time then you meditate and things like that. So it's a beautiful science of what is Brahma Muhurta and why you need to wake up and how our body starts shutting down, why eating before sunset is important, And all of these small things that were somehow our ancestors thought that, they are not going to do it.
Hmm.
Let us put it into as rituals, as festivals. And they did
Yes.
it. But we have screwed that also. We said, okay, fasting. Now, fasting, we can't eat rice and this, but we will eat all sabudana, this. We have screwed that up also. But they said that, okay, fasting is a great way to detox your body and your body needs it.
Yeah.
So, a lot of things, Akhila, that we have missed out on, and it's high time we embrace it again because the kind of stress that I'm seeing, like just yesterday, a conversation with one of my designers. So I've noticed that whenever I tell her that this was not what I was expecting out of you, as a designer of your caliber, I expect you to see these things in detail. Next time, please ensure this doesn't repeat.
Hmm.
This is my verbal message. I mean, text message to her. Next day, she's got migraine.
Hmm.
People are not able to take the slightest stress because they're already so heavily stressed because of social media
Yes.
or internet or whatever they're seeing around them. Like today, when I see continuously 3-4 hours screen, my head starts to pain and I'm not feeling nice. So I have to shut it all out and go to a silo place and sit down for with myself. I know what it feels like, what's happening. And they're constantly doing this to themselves.
Yeah.
Like if I'm talking to you, my mind is also like, okay, what is they are doing, what we should be doing? Okay, it's 12 o'clock now. This we need to do this. This is something we need to stop because multitasking is actually a myth. Doesn't
Yeah.
work. Doesn't work. You only lose, you don't gain. So I
Yeah.
can go on and on in different tangent, but we'll stop here. But all I'm trying to say is that I know the magic of it. I'm also writing a book on this to really help people. In terms of what has. I mean, I just want to share my experience and say that it has helped me tremendously. So I'm sure it will help you guys also.
Yeah. And I think especially people like as we grow older, right? We have more and more responsibilities that comes up, and hence it becomes even more important to have that little time for ourselves, to give space to ourselves, which I think now that I see my mother after I grew up and her responsibility essentially towards me is done, she's now getting time for herself, which
Hmm.
on a retrospective way, I don't think so that should have happened. She should have gotten time for herself throughout her life, not just after I grew up, right?
Yeah.
So I think especially for young adults, it becomes even more important. And on top of that, social media, I believe that we just take in too much information via social media,
Too much.
like unnecessary information, and we become so addicted to it that it's like even without my phone in my hand, I won't feel okay without it. So I
Yeah.
think, yeah. Um, what kind of legacy do you hope to leave behind for people? It could be via your brand, via your business, or your approach towards life or parenting.
I thought about this, and very recently I was at Kana National Forest, and just sitting, and I realized that I just want to be. And a leaf fell from a tree, and I was like, no one knew it existed. No one would know that it died. And I said, this is how I want to be. I was here, and when I go, I want to go in such a way that I wouldn't have been a burden on Mother Earth.
Maybe in a way, the way I see it is no legacy because you're entwined with the universe so much that you don't need to have a separate entity or existence of yourself because you have
Yeah.
always been existing with the universe.
Yeah, something like that. So I existed, and when I go, I go.
Yeah.
Simple.
If you had to describe yourself as a leader and give one word to it, what would it be and why?
I think I'll choose two words. One is purpose, and the other is reflective.
Okay.
Because over the years, what I've felt as a leader is your purpose also keeps changing. It's never the one. It's never one. Because say you started off with A, you reached that destination. Now you've moved beyond that, right? So now your purpose, everything will shift.
Hmm.
What happens during this process to understand is that why I said reflective also the other word was that when I'm reflecting, I should know that I've moved past A,
Right.
right? If not, what will happen is I've chosen A and I will be attached to that A.
Hmm.
Even if I've moved beyond it, I'll be like, no, I'm still at A. I want to go to A. I would want to reach A, but I've reached it. You understand? It's a very contradictory thing in your head. You'll be so attached to that vision or to that purpose that you won't realize now that probably it's no more needed,
Hmm.
or probably you've moved beyond it.
Hmm.
Because every day we are also growing, and along with us, everything around us is also changing and growing.
Yes.
So for me, a major part of my day goes, of course, with other stuff. One major thing that I do throughout my day is to take some time out to just for reflection. Like, okay, I spoke to Akhila. Did I speak right? Should I have better answers the next time? Okay, probably I'll write it down. All the learnings, all the feedbacks, all what I think in my head, or everything through the day. How did I speak to Dia? Was that something? Was I too rude? This is a problem that I'm facing. So even at work, our purpose say is to really give recognition to those 3.2 million pluckers and do something for them.
Hmm.
Now, the idea is that, okay, I've started with branding and designing and all that. I've begun. We also have a small doll to celebrate them, which goes in every order with their story. All of these are steps that we are taking. But today, unfortunately, I'm not owning an estate to be able to impact them directly.
Yep.
I have to every time go through an estate, owners and kind of do something for them. But I eventually build a brand of a certain stature that I command that sort of, credibility that I'm now able to do a lot many more things for them. So it's a journey. But today, can I be say, okay, I'm not doing anything. I need to raise money for this. Okay, they are facing this much of problem, but you're not. I've learned this from my husband because I was like this. I'd be like, Kaushik, we're not doing anything. We have to do, and he'll be like, Prachi, you can't impact. We want to create this bigger impact, and you're talking of just this. So have patience. There will come a day probably that, we'll be able to create actual impact, not impact on papers and not as PDFs, not on a page on website. An impact which is at the source, which kind of really change people.
Yep.
And that is why I say that, for me, leadership is all about a purpose and be reflective because it's very important as a leader to be reflective.
Uh, that's really quite insightful. I think that's something I'll write it in my diary. Yes. You have been talking about your partner, right? As an entrepreneur, how important it is to have the right spouse who has the right mindset.
Okay. Right. You're asking me all the wrong questions, Akhila. I can go on and on this topic. So I want to delve a little deeper into this because, our generation, or rather, I don't know if our generations are the same, my generation. I grew up thinking my husband will be Shah Rukh Khan of TDLJ, of Kuch Kuch Hota Hai. And all romance, huh? All romantic and doing things for you. And when I got married, I was 23, and I remember that my husband was nothing like that, not close to one bit of it. And I am a die-hard fanatic, lunatic, whatever you call. And I'm here expecting all of this from him, putting all that baggage on him. It took me years of healing and understanding what love is, what marriage is, what it should be, what it shouldn't be, how were the marriages of our Rishi Munis were like. And I've done all that to say that if they were able to do a certain way, then why am I struggling here sitting? With Kaushal, what's beautiful is that I see it as a compliment today, that we both complement each other. Like if I am great with design, creative skills, first principle thinking, he's very good with, negotiations, talking to people, the PR stuff and all that.
Hmm.
There's a beautiful balance of how we come together at Teabox. But this did not happen from day one. There was a lot of work that I had to put, or rather, we had to put to make it what it is today.
Right.
Endless fights, endless arguments, uh, really hating him at point and really loving him at one point, and questioning what love is. I've
Hmm.
read a lot of books on it again, to understand that is there something called love again, or it's just a man-made thing again. So there are a lot of deeper things to reflect upon, right? But what I have realized is the most important thing in the relationship is respect. And what they don't show to us in the movies is the real struggle in life. Like I
Yes.
can't keep doing romance in life when my business needs me.
Yeah.
I can't say, please take me to a beautiful, fancy honeymoon where I don't have bucks in my bank. You know,
Yeah.
that struggle is real. And I
Yes.
remember on our honeymoon, Kaushal, he took the laptop, the first thing he went everywhere. And I was like, no, this is not how honeymoon should be. There is a set conditioning in my head. The rivers need to flow, my dress needs to flow, the music should be there, and flowers should be there, and there are all lot of things, right? But today, when I am laughing at myself. I'm like, what stupid was I? Like, T-Box had just started. It was into probably few months of its existence. And Kaushal was the one-man show at that point in time. He was the HR, he was the procurement, he was the logistics, he was operations, he was even the customer support, and he had to be there.
Yeah.
But I'm like, no, it's our honeymoon. So that's why I've always I did speak about all this earlier on my post, that please read this book called Open Marriage. It's a very beautiful book. It's not in this term called open marriage that you allow other, 2 3 men or 2 3 women. No, it's not like that. It is to say that there are two individuals, and I see it as a track, basically like a train track. You're joined, but then you have your own individual existence also, but you're going towards the same journey, but you have different, what to say, but you both are different,
Hmm.
going towards probably the same thing together, as a family, but very different as an individual. And what I've also realized is when you don't love yourself, you
Yeah.
will never be loved by anyone. And when you don't respect yourself, you will never be respected by anyone. I learned all this a very hard way. I didn't love myself, but I gave out love like, it was no one's business. And I'm realizing, why is that person not, I'm doing so much for him or her, and why are they not giving me back?
Hmm.
But I didn't realize that they're not seeing me give it to myself, so how will they give it?
Yeah.
And which is why taking time out for yourself from day one is very important, because then you grow as an individual. And then you have things to talk about. If not, what are you going to talk about? Your kids? I mean, that's the only thing that will grow. Apart from that, there's nothing else that's growing. But when you read a book, or you have watched a movie, you have met a friend, you have, just gone alone in a cafe and just spent time, or you've gone traveling alone, there are experiences you bring. And then you have so much to share and talk, and, all that. That keeps it's beautiful. I mean, I have come from like this to like this, then like this, like this. So, and what I've also realized is relationships are like that. It can never be rosy all the time, and it will never be dark all the time.
Hmm.
Your question was something very different, but this was important to address.
Yes.
That's why I thought we should talk about it.
Yes.
But we are
I
great
mean,
as couples at Teabox, so it's working for our team. We are not pulling each other's hair.
I think the conversations that we have had so far, I think there's a lot for me to think about as well, and maybe unlearn a lot of things initially, rather than just learning or adding on to who I am. I loved the fact on how you have maneuvered your life through parenting, through finding yourself, understanding how marriage works, and also understanding about your profession. And the most important part is you did not talk about it much, but how you are as a manager. For any young professional like me, right? 80% of my validation comes from my manager. It doesn't come from anyone else. So the way you stated on how you were trying to understand your report, your designers, right? That spoke a lot to me. So, thank you for that. Thank you for spending time with me. And hopefully, even for the audience, it will be a great learning journey.
Thank you, Akhila, for having me, and all the best for what you're doing with these podcasts. And I hope you bring a lot of more interesting people on board for all of us to be learning and getting inspired from one another.